think about your relationships with your clients, transactional or relational. Transactional, it's just like, I solved your problem, here's your money, we're done. But that relationship, if you honor that relationship and nurture that relationship like it's everything, then no matter what, and that's kind of like what happened.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Boardroom Buzz with the blue-collar twins, Jeremy and Jason Julio. Today, we've got a special guest and a good friend of ours, David DeStefano from Digital Building Consultants. Dave's built multiple companies across construction, consulting, and technology. He's experienced success, setbacks, tough lessons, and leadership growth, and today helps businesses modernize through AI while staying grounded in faith, culture, and purpose. Dave, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Julio brothers.
Dude, it's been some time.
I know.
We've been talking about getting you on the show for a while. Super excited to have you. You have so much great background with all the things you've done being an entrepreneur. So I'm excited to share your story with our listeners.
Thank you. No, I feel privileged to be on here with you guys, man. I'm so proud of what you guys did.
We're lucky to have you here also, man. Tell us a little bit about where you came from and how you kind of got here.
I got to thank God, one, because I probably wouldn't be alive. But yeah, I had my mom was 17 when she had me. I always joke around that she was like 14 because she never aged. But my father he wasn't around most of my childhood. So my mom, she dropped out of high school. We lived in Detroit and, we were just blue collar family. We were actually, my mom's family, they were Appalachian coal miners in southeastern Kentucky. So if you read the book, Hillbilly Elegy with J.D. Vance, very similar, how they were in Appalachia and then they moved up to like Ohio and Michigan. So very, that was kind of like my mom's side of the family. So we lived in Detroit till about 13. So I think my first real entrepreneurial, I think I was 8. So I took this jar of candy that my grandma gave me. I was maybe I was 7. Sat right on the steps of the corner market and I was selling them to people as they were walking in. And Kareem walks out. He's like, David, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm selling candy. He goes, but this is my candy store. And I go, I know, but you got all the customers. So from that time, my mom kind of shared that story with me. And I was like, man, it must have just been in me to always want to do something. Because I was, just constantly tinkering on the lawnmower. Probably started roofing because I got reconnected to my father's side of the family, which was all New York. They were part of like Arthur Avenue, part of the Bronx. So I kind of had this really weird bringing like a Kentucky hillbilly moved to, having family up in the Bronx. So
for the audience, if you ever got to meet Dave is the kind of guy that you could drop him off in the middle of nowhere and he will have a best friend within minutes.
I mean, I wouldn't call him best friend because you guys are one of my best friends, but I would have a friend.
They're going to build relationships and getting people to love who he is because of how authentic he is and how much fun he is and what a great guy he is. I mean, there's several stories, right? We're not going to get into all those stories. So that New York vibe and the Kentucky vibe kind of makes you who you are today, right?
Yeah, I think that a combination, really my faith. I've never been a Bible beater, but growing up, having those Southern roots, in Kentucky, man, Sunday, things were shut down. It's not like up here in New Jersey. We didn't have games on Sunday. It was church, you know what I mean? And so even when I was in Detroit, my mom always brought me to church. It was just part of it was everything, you know what I mean? And so I think that was always part instilled in me. And it was always the 10 Commandments and do unto others. And my grandma was really hard on that. So I think that was a big component. And then just kind of having this diversified lifestyle of not having any money, seeing my struggles with my mom. And then but I think I was about 13 or so by the time I met my grandfather, my father, and all of my family.
So grandpa was in the city and what kind of construction did you do?
Commercial roofing and waterproof. I mean, in New York City, it's a little different because we were a union roofing company. So we did St. Pat's Cathedral, Empire State Building, Chrysler Building, MetLife. So we did a lot of those were our clients. So we basically serviced either re-roofs or maintenance, leaks. A lot of those buildings were pretty old. So that was my grandpa. He started probably in the 50s working for the Rockefellers, primarily on their commercial buildings and stuff like that in Manhattan. Manhattan. So he had a wealth of knowledge, and, you know, his clients like really appreciated who he was. It was one thing that he said to me one time. He goes, if you treat your client's home or building like it's your own, you'll live in it forever. And so that was kind of like, man, that's like, that like puts like customer service to another level, right? Like, hey, this guy wants his shoes, take your shoes off, right? Like we had these clients that like you'd go in, you got to put booties on, right? And, you know, and our guys would be like upset. And I'm like, no, dude, that's their home. They're paying us to come in their home. So respect their home, right? So those are some like really cool things that I got to learn from my grandfather that I wouldn't be who I was if I didn't come from where I came from, I guess, you know.
Now, Grandpa got you into the roofing industry?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, I knew that they were roofers. I started roofing in high school. My best friend Drew, which you guys know from our ski trips, we went to high school and college together. He was a track athlete. I wrestled. And so I think it was probably, I was 17 when I graduated high school. So we both graduated. He got a track scholarship. I didn't know where I was going. And I ended up getting pretty much a full ride to Cumberland College. It's now University of Cumberland. So it's a Baptist school. You know what I mean? We had to go to church on Monday mornings. But so Drew and I went to college together. And right after we graduated, we're doing roofing work for these guys. And his brother-in-law and another guy at his church, Dave Sander. Awesome guy, very good leader. We learned a lot from. We're like, hey man, this roofing stuff's pretty easy. Let's go start a business. So we go to Staples, oh man, and we print out we get some business cards made, said DNA Roofing. You can only imagine what our friends made fun of us. But it was David and Andrew. What's the name of it was really David and Andrew. So it was DNA Roofing, and we would drive around, and this is in Northern Kentucky, right? Just residential. Yeah, just shingles. Yeah, that's all it was. So we did enough that we felt like we could do a pretty good job, you know, like at least from the street. So we go, oh man. And so my buddy had this black truck, like it was just like beat up. We didn't have ladder racks. We just put the ladder literally in the truck, strapped it down, and we just started driving around like neighborhoods that we saw, like drive around, look for the bad roofs. And I was the dude that knocked on the door. I go, looks like you need a roof replacement, huh? And they're like, yeah, would you like a free estimate? And they're like, yeah, sure. I go get Drew. Hey, Drew, come on, let's go. So we go up, we measure it, we sit in a car. I was good at numbers, right? Boom, boom. I'm like, all right, go close the deal. So he'd go in. He was a preacher's son, right? So, he was a good dude. And most of the time, we'd close the deal. So, like, we did that all through college. By the time, we were on the 5-year plan, good students. And by the time we finished, we learned more in that than we did in college. We think we both had our business degrees. But now my best friend Drew, he's got probably one of the most respectable roofing companies in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati. It's Crisp Roofing and Gutters.
No more DNA?
No more DNA. And he's very, very knowledgeable. I've taught him a lot of the stuff that I learned in New York with the flat liquids, and I had a manufacturing company as well. But yeah, Drew does a great job. We soundboard a lot of stuff. He's an expert in residential and does some commercials.
So what did wrestling teach you specifically about the pressures that business never could? So, right? Like, I mean, wrestling was a core part of your life, along with Jesus, like you said in the Bible. But how did wrestling set you up and prepare you for the pressures of business?
I think it was probably to never quit, man. Like it was just, I was my freshman year in high school, I was 86 pounds. So coming, where I lived in Detroit, I got picked on quite a bit. Through middle school, probably it would a lot more than what this generation of kids are used to. Not downing what happens on the internet, right? Like that's horrible. But so it was just like I didn't want to get picked on. I didn't want to get, so I got into wrestling and I sucked. I wasn't a great of an athlete. You guys know me. Don't play me in basketball. I'm probably a little rough, right? But, wrestling really was like, it was like one of those sports that if you want to be good and you put your mind to it, you can, right? And so that's what I did. If I lost, okay, what did I do? And I started like this process of like self-reflection and making yourself better. Self-reflection and making yourself better. And I'm getting better at that even now to this day, that I think that it's, we can only truly grow if we're constantly trying to make ourselves better, right? And so I learned that in wrestling.
Yeah. You said, and I said this just recently, looking yourself in the mirror. A lot of people don't want to do that. They don't want to take that self-accountability, look at yourself in the mirror. They're asking everybody else to look at you and give you the right the answer that you're looking for. But deep down inside, all you have to do is look yourself in that mirror and ask yourself, am I doing what's necessary to make what I want a reality? So between the roofs, breaking your knees and wrestling, beating you up, what comes next?
Hot yoga. Yoga.
But business-wise, what's next?
Oh man, business-wise. So I guess this is kind of where like faith came in. Really, I've done well, I think. Depends what level of well is, right? Like there's superficial, there's what people see, there's what's in your bank account, there's what's not in your bank account, right? And I don't know, I kind of went through some highs and lows, made some bad decisions with not having right paperwork, contracts, choices of, just bad business decisions. I left New York about 15 years ago, left the family business that unfortunately bankrupted last September. It was my grandfather's. And, what do they say? Some people's misfortunes are other people's fortunes, right? So kind of it was a scenario of just doing the right thing all the time ends up paying off, right? And so I left my family's business about 15 years ago out of principle. And I was in my church at the time, and I was in my late 20s, and I didn't understand the complexities of marriage, right? And like having kids. I was 29 when I had my first son, and we were in the city, right? So we're living in Manhattan. I'd already bought my place, right? But I was, by my second one, my wife's from the Midwest. So we were in a tiny 600 square foot apartment, right? And to have two kids, I was like, no, babe, don't worry. I'll just make a bunk bed, like a crib, And she's like, So it's long story short, I don't need to get into it, but I wasn't being the best husband that I should have been. And I was, I was building the business, my uncle's business, and I had an ownership stake in there too. But I was chasing, having fun, partying, doing all that stuff in the city. And my wife just wasn't happy. I wasn't being present for her. And I was chasing the dollar. You know what I mean? I was like, it's expensive to live in the city. So I was I was at our church, and preacher said one day, he goes, are you following the provisions or vision, right? God's vision for your life or the provisions? And I was like, man, I'm following the provisions. And so it gave me the faith to kind of like walk away, which was kind of hard. I was making good six figures. And I said to my wife, I go, I don't know what it is. I go, but I feel like I built this very skinny building, and I need to knock it down and build a bigger foundation. And so probably, it's been about 15 years. So I would say probably 12 years of digging, if that was the kind of give you an idea. I spent about 12 years of digging to make that foundation that probably I started coming out of the ground when I decided to truly dedicate what I'm doing, my vision, to God. So that was really the shift, because I had some partnerships, I had some businesses, lost a lot of money, and I said, what am I chasing? I was chasing worldly provisions. I wasn't chasing God's vision for my life. So when I aligned what I was doing in business with God's vision, things just started happening for me that just didn't make sense. Things that I couldn't do on my own that were just started coming out, right? And so that's when I was like, whoa, man, is this really you or is this me? And so the more I leaned on God into what I was doing, the more things had just started. Because like growing up, this was a good thing. It was like growing up in the South, Southern Baptist, like you have this like, oh, you drinking that devil's brew, watching that devil's TV, right? And then up here, I got into non-denominational church, Presbyterian, and it was like, oh wait, I'm not broken. I'm not like that bad. Like God could love me. And so when I started realizing that is when I was like, oh, okay, I could just work on getting better. You know what I mean? Just being a better person. So I think for me, the big turn in my businesses was when having the right alignment with the right people. Because when you have the right people on your team, you can accomplish anything, right? Like I have a team of A partners, B players within our team that are allowing us to just move forward at exponential pace that I didn't really expect because I haven't worked with those kind of people before, on a team that's just unified together. So, long story, but,
Now, are you in the roofing industry still? Or?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So are those 8 partners part of the roofing journey? Okay.
I was actually, I was kind of going out of that as I raised some capital for my AI business. You guys know the started on the QR side, QR coding of stuff, but it evolved over time, and it's like weird how God kind of like drops things in your lap, right? Like a lot of my business in life was relational, right? It wasn't as much transactional. And so like some of the guys out there that are paying attention, like if you're young enough and you have the time, think about your relationships with your clients is transactional or relational, right? Because transactional, it's just like, I solved your problem, here's your money, we're done. But that relationship, if you honor that relationship and you're constantly like, you nurture that relationship like it's everything, then no matter what, and that's kind of like what happened. So my uncle, as far as I know, he basically bankrupted our family business that I walked away 15 years ago. So a couple of his key employees, they needed a place to work. I knew somebody. I helped them land over there, and things shifted over. Like people were like, "Hey, Dave, I trust you. I know what you've done. Can you help us out?" And so I think that when in business, especially in my kind of line of business, where you could have a project that's $1 million. You could have a repair that's $20,000. You're kind of like a fiduciary of their funds, right? And especially if you start to understand real estate deeper, it's not a transaction necessarily, right? Like there's, when you have those big contracts like that, it's like, hey, it's your reputation. The person that awarded that contract, it's their reputation. So, so thank God, done the right thing for people. All of my adult career, I think messing up and owning it is important, and saying, hey, you know what? I was young, dumb, screwed up. Let's, let me move forward. So
how is the commercial roofing industry in New York? I know we've had some conversations in the past about, fighting with insurance companies, dealing with insurance that you have to pay to kind of get your jobs done. Employees, building the relationships. Who's your target audience? Is it the project managers or the construction companies? Just what is it like to be a commercial roofer in New York City? In the biggest city in the world, Dave DeStefano and his team are going out there fixing roofs.
Yeah, so I tiptoe the boundaries, and I think I'm able to do it because the clients that I've worked with for almost over 2 decades now, I've always been honest. I never, I forget what the saying is: pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, or whatever. It's like, listen, you know what? Everybody's entitled to make an honest living, right? And if you can help somebody make save money and solve their problem, then you could do it. And so I've been very fortunate through the years as I've moved through the roofing industry, primarily in New York. I've kind of developed relationships at different levels. So if you want to talk about like just roofing in general, so when I worked for my family's roofing company the first decade, we serviced MetLife and Tishman Speyer and Cushman & Wakefield, CBRE, JLL, all these guys. And so we were a restoration and maintenance company. So we kind of had like a group of 10 or 20 guys that were servicing leak repairs, right? So New York City, if you don't realize it, is pretty much a roof, like every aspect of it, right? Like if you go down Midtown Manhattan, there's subways underneath of it. So all of those streets are essentially a roof. All the sidewalks are vaulted, right? And tie into the foundation. So when you think about the city, it's every square inch has to be waterproof. The way that they're, expanding over roadways and trying to create green roofs so that people can, relax and have sun and reduce, heat island effect, things like that. So I think, commercial roofing in New York City is pretty interesting. I was president of the Polyurea Development Association, which is it's their national trade association for polyurea. Polyurea is like a product that, truck bed liners, the spray and truck bed liners, that's a polyurea. What else? I'm trying to think. A lot of the pond liners, we used it. We sold the company. I exited I don't know how many years ago now. It's owned by a publicly traded company now. And we did the vessel in Hudson Yards. And it's polyurea. What it is it's a high performance elastomeric coating, right? That's mixed with this high pressure machine that pushes it out through the hose and through your gun, and then it atomizes, right? I've been out of that scene for a bit, so I don't speak it as eloquently. But basically, we had this contract over in Italy. And so the Hudson Yards vessel, like the phase 1, what a cool project. And this would be an ideal, like, what is it like roofing in New York City, right? Like, you got guys that do work like in the outer boroughs and, little walk-ups and stuff like that. And what really limits people from being able to do these major, major projects like this is the insurance. Insurance in New York State, and I could be off, but for the most part that I know of, New York City has this third-party action over, which allows workers to sue, override your workers' comp, and attach to your general liability. So that's why the general liability insurance in New York City is through the roof. You have to have this third-party action over. And so if your subcontractors don't have it, you have to have a rider. So that the cost to do the insurance on these mega buildings that are $1 billion, $2 billion, it's really, really expensive. So it's kind of, it's the insurance cost has gone up astronomically in the last 20 years.
Do you charge the consumer
Oh yeah,
a percentage?
Yeah. And it ranges, depending on the company's level of insurance and what they need. Like some want a $25 million umbrella, right? And so we're talking like minimum insurance policies for like roofers in New York City is like $1 million a year. We're not talking like we're talking like $300,000-$400,000 deposit and at least another $60,000 to $120,000 a month to be able to just open the door. They don't care how much you're doing. Yeah, so it's a real, it's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like you have some of these very expensive assets, like the project that we did, the vessel in Hudson Yards. So it's basically this copper staircase kind of, it's not really copper, it's stainless steel. It was dipped in this ion solution that makes it look like copper. So we did all the waterproofing on it. So like my friends back in Detroit and in Michigan and Kentucky, they're like, I don't know what kind of roofer flies to Italy every month. Cause like I was flying to Italy, my wife probably, whatever. Thank God she knows I'm a good guy. But I was flying to Italy every month for like a week and a half. And we're spraying, we called them dog bones. So there was like 130 of them. And then they came back here and we erected them on top. Tishman Construction, they dropped them in and we basically created it on site. It was a pretty cool, but you got to know a lot. You got to know about steel and concrete. You got to understand the time value of money and logistics and cranes and permits and when you can do work, when you can't. You got to have a permit for everything.
How we're dealing with your employees? Because that's one of the harder parts in, say, pest control.
It depends which hat I'm wearing in that sense. So I'll go back to my days when I was running the operations on the union side, right? It was a little difficult. It was good and it was bad. Like you had access to high level, highly skilled, trained people, but then you had a few rotten apples that, in my opinion, there was no dissension amongst the ranks. So like a guy would work really hard and he, 10 years in, and then here's a guy that's not working that hard, getting paid the same, right?
That comes down to extreme ownership and really owning, all right, well, why are they not doing what, like, is it because we're not offering right training? Is it offered because we have the wrong hiring process? What is it, right? So is it us or is it them? I would tend to point the finger mostly at us, taking that ownership.
No, that is, that's if you can look in the mirror, right? And look at that. And so like when I restarted these new entities that I have, it was very clear, when I told my partners, I said, listen, our morals and our integrity are first and foremost at the root of everything. And I go, every employee that we bring on, they have to see our vision, right? In what that is. And so now none of us have to really, we're not worried about our back, you know what I mean? Because we know that everybody's working towards the same.
Can you state the vision? What is the vision?
I mean, I got a few for the different companies. Yeah. So I have 5 different entities right now, and it's really to advance us humans, right? I know this is going to sound really kind of silly the way that I'm breaking it out. I just didn't expect to have that whole thing. But basically, we're at a crossroads right now in the way that AI is being developed, in my opinion. I'm not claiming to be this expert by any means, right? I'm a blue collar dude just like us, right? Like where we came from.
If you had to give advice to not just pest control operators, but any service-based industry regarding AI, what type of advice would you give them?
Wow. I mean, I would really get into understanding how to prompt that, if the AI is done correctly, and the way that we're doing it is that the individual has ownership, right? That our company, when we do go out into the market outside of our beta clients, that we're just a steward, right? Like it's kind of the way I feel like with my companies. I'm the steward of what I've been blessed with, right? And so I'm looking at this AI that we've built it's not my data. It's not my IP. It's yours. It's your twin, right? Maybe one day I'm going to build your twins, right? The twins are the twins.
Quadruplet.
Right? And so basically it's your knowledge. I shouldn't own it, right? I'm just here to help you monetize it, right? Help you. I've built the infrastructure that allows your knowledge to exponentially grow and implement it into your company. And so we're the custodian of that, right? And so we're building it differently, right? Because to me, I'm in a small to mid-sized market, right? Like I love these 300,000 construction companies that are aging out, right? And it's like, what are they doing, right? Like where's that knowledge going? How do we capture that? How do we empower the next generation? How is that built so that it's not owned and controlled by, a few big companies, right? And so I think, my goals, my aspiration, my vision, right? When you ask that is that we have shared data ownership, because essentially anything that could be done on a spreadsheet could be automated with agents, right? And so, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to AI enable those people? How are you going to teach them how to prompt engineer and ask the right things and then use that output effectively? Because if you got one person that's fully AI enabled, but the rest of the firm's not, then you're creating a bottleneck. So you're getting all this output. You've probably used GBT and you get all this output, boom. And you're like, now what? And you're like, crap. All these other people need to have similar capabilities, but they need to know how to use it. And so it's almost like having like this co-pilot with you in a way, not to use that word, but it's a new way of working. And it's like, I think that for very efficient, effective people, I think that they're going to scale significantly. I think that people that are afraid to try it, the next generation, what is it, Gen Z? Those guys are scary.
Where do you get your information, and what resources do you utilize to kind of educate yourself on this topic?
So I may be a little neurotic because I don't fully understand the algorithm, but I do. So I have a couple different handles that I listen to news: left, right, center, faith-driven, and I just try to find the truth, right? What do they say? 3 sides, mine, yours, in the middle, right? I kind of try to do the same thing. I try to hit 3-4 conferences a year. I was at a missional AI conference in London last year, which was amazing. I met some amazing faith-driven technologists and people. This author named Richard Susskind. He wrote a really good book. I forget the exact name of it, but his name's Richard Susskind. He's written a couple books on AI. Yeah, that's another thing. Just read. Read on AI, read on its capabilities. Listen, I have Audible and I have Blinkist. So I'm constantly Blinkist. I can listen to it's an app. It's probably like $7-8 a month. And it basically gives you summaries of books in like maybe 12 to 20 minutes and almost any major book. So I won't read a book until I listen to it on Audible first. And so I'll listen to the 20 minutes. It pretty much condenses it. And then I'll open it up in my, and then Speechify as well. So I use Speechify and I'll dump articles into that. And so I'm more of an auditory learner. So
are there a lot of industries that are going to be able to utilize this AI platform?
I think for me, one of the hardest challenges has been like finding the right capital alignment with a vision that's it's kind of hard to wrap your head around to some extent. And because I'm not necessarily seeking worldly provisions, if you want to say it that way, right? Like I'm not saying I'm not trying to like make a ton of money, but I'm not doing that knowing that I'm creating collateral damage, right? And I think that, this becomes another, topic of discussion is like capitalism at what cost, right? Like what are we doing to all the people, right? Like even private equity roll-ups, right? Like the collateral damage, right? I consult with clients in Texas. They don't want to use PE-backed roofing companies because they're just complete disaster, right? Because all these companies got bundled and they lost who they really were in that process. And so I think that, a lot of, not a lot, I mean, listen, it's just the market, right? Like investment bankers, private equity, they're looking at the dollar, right? And so a lot of these guys that built these companies, they cared about the community, their people, like what you guys did, right? Like cared about the community. And
do you think it's possible to maintain that vision of after PE roll up, like of a lot of roofing companies? If you had the right president overseeing all those companies that were rolled up, do you think that could be successful or no?
Be careful what I'm saying, but like what I'm basically, those problems will go away.
Okay.
If it's done right and implemented right, I think that the even strategy in the market and how they're doing these roll-ups may completely even change.
With AI, it's scaling so quickly and it's changing very rapidly along the way, right? Is it hard to manage it and keep up with it? I mean, you teach them one thing, and then 2 weeks later, it's evolved into something completely different.
I think what's kind of helping is that I think so far ahead that I'm always I'm pushing my team forward. Like I'm like, no. And they're like, they're trying to wrap it around. So I'm always pushing the boundaries of what and why we're doing it. But for me, I think it's my role, right? Within my team, my group, the ecosystem that I created.
Can you talk about what Digital Dave is or no?
Yeah, a little. I mean, it's essentially my twin, right? Like my knowledge, it's a friend of mine. He started, I don't know how long ago he started it, but he started creating digital twins. And maybe 6-7 years ago, he fascinated me about it. And he's a great friend of mine. His name's Francesco Rulli. He's from Italy. He's a judo player at the New York Athletic Club. That's who I competed for in wrestling. So Francesco's been a friend of mine, a mentor of mine. He exited a fashion company maybe 10 years ago. And so he reinvested into Bitcoin. He started a charity. He's just always very, very forward thinking, and got my thoughts on the digital twin and actually built my first version of it. And I was like, hey, man, I like this. And I just had a bigger vision of like where I wanted it to go. And I don't know, I think just aligning with the right people really helped me kind of like allow that vision to take place. And so I'm just kind of educating my team on AI. I'm not as worried as much of like, am I doing this every day? Or because every day something drops, something new, right? I think that if you keep chasing that, you're always going to be like chasing your tail, right? And so I used to share the story with my guys when I was partners in a manufacturing business and we sold it. And this one guy, I was like, anybody can walk a mile. I go, you walking a mile in a circle or are you walking in a straight line, right? Like how far did you get today? And I think it's kind of the same thing. Like when you're looking at like how you're trying to approach things, are you short-minded? And I think as much as we want to be short-minded in this and knowing that it's like happening so quickly, I think that the real winners are going to be the ones that kind of have like that longer play and are saying, hey, listen, I'm not in it for the quick buck, but I'm here for a longer play, and start building that way versus trying to get quick wins. And you can watch some videos and, learn how to use GBT and use some of the tools. I think you could do that pretty easily, but I think that you should probably get with the right people to really understand what your company needs prior to just jumping all in and spending a lot of money that could be wasted,
You've done a lot, man. You got a lot going on.
I know.
How many balls do you have up in the air right now?
Oh man, it's 5 companies that I'm trying to position, raise capital, create a holding company, structure. I got to sell one off. A lot of learning, just really surrounding myself with the right people that kind of like that I'm morally aligned with. That was the biggest thing. So I'm not really looking my back.
How do you find those right people? The sports club helped a little bit.
Yeah, it's funny. I think people are always in your life, right? Like, and do you see them, right? And it's like, what are we looking for? And so for me, it was like really was a shift in mindset. It was I was chasing the money. It was, and I'm not saying that I don't want it and I don't need it. I just think that like when you're chasing these like superficial things that could be all taken away. I mean, we probably all know guys that have lost everything, you know what I mean? And you're like, whew, that's hard, right? Like I almost lost everything, you know what I mean? And you know, I told my wife, I was like, only thing we ain't gonna lose is our house, babe. I was like, we'll sell that and move back to Kentucky. And she's like, what? And I'm like, no, don't worry. The house is good. And she's like, what? And I think, yeah, man, you got to have thick skin to go down this road, and you got to have the right partner in life. I think, you know, my wife, if she wasn't able to kind of take care of our family and me, that I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. Probably doing too much, but I think as I think about it, I got my own therapist. You know, I had to hire that one about a year ago. And
that's interesting. Something that I don't do, but I think I would appreciate it and enjoy it. Is it something that's enlightening for you and helpful?
It is. I wish it was included in like our regular health, you know, like that it's covered in health insurance, but like you got to pay outside. And I think, you know, with what's going on in society with, you know, social media and the kids and like, it's just a lot. And so like, to me, it was kind of like a humbling, like, you know, as a guy, you know, I don't really look at myself as like that, like masculine, but like you are constantly like, supposed to be the leader of your family or the leader of your business, and then you're like, yo, I think I need some help. And so I think it was kind of like humbling to like, you know, share your junk with somebody, you know, and
really opened up,
you know, really
off your chest and spoke about certain things that you don't normally do
and be truthful. Like, you know, it's like hard to like, you know, and then hear it, like look in that mirror and be like, is that me? You know, because you have this like perception of who you are versus what the rest of the world sees. And so you can kind of be jaded. And so what I've been getting so deep into what I'm doing with technology and where we're going, that like I wanted to make sure that I was grounded in base reality. If that makes any sense. Like I'm so far in the future with what I'm doing and building that like I didn't want to lose base reality with like my family and my life and which
is
my
the
kids.
most important thing, right?
Yeah. You know, and that truthfully, I mean, it's a really hard balance. It really is. And that's, you know, I think, you know, for the young guys, I think finding who you are and what you really love is, you know, the faster you can find that, the better. Like I don't even know if it's like an industry thing, man. Like I look back and I love the hustle. You know what I mean? I don't know what it was. Maybe it was not having anything and like wanting something, but like now it's like weird. Like I'm not really chasing the money per se, although I want it, but it's more of like, man, look what good we could do. You know what I mean? Look how much we could save our clients, right? Like how much I can help these families, right? Like, and that's what, like, I'm looking at things of like sharing the data with my guys and like they're collecting it and saying, hey, thanks for helping us share this data. This is, you know, we saved 30 grand this year. Here you guys go. You know, like I think that a lot of people when they build their business are just, they're rightfully so, it could be, but it's their own objective, is that they're self-driven, right? Like their own self, like I need my money. I want my money. But like one of the things my grandfather taught me was like, you know, we're going to a job site and I saw all these guys, these union guys working for us. And he goes, you see that? He goes, they count on us every week for their food, you know, and it's like, there's like 40 guys there, you know, and you're like, it could be 200 families, you know, I mean, 200 mouths, you know, and it's like, he's like, that's the most important part of what we're doing is we're taking care of all those families. And I think sometimes, you know, when big money gets involved, that they don't realize that you don't have a company if you don't have those guys, you know what I mean? And like, so I think it's important that like when you're building a company that you're, you know, that like there's good into what you're doing. It's just not like driven by money. I think that's my feeling, you know, like, you know, having guys that are like, thank you so much. I appreciate this job. I appreciate this opportunity. That's like,
well, you value them just as much as they value you.
Oh, dude, I mean, it almost makes me tear up, like thinking, to me, that's the greatest blessing, is being able to like know that you're helping people, you know?
How is this going to look? You go into a business, is it like an app? Is it a software? Do you go in with a team of people and really break things down? How does it look?
What I've found is that each business is a little bit different, right? And some people are more tech forward, some are not. Most of the guys in my industry are not quite ready, right? Like I think you guys were way ahead tech savvy, right? Like the way you guys did your marketing and, you know, you guys, in my opinion, I think that you guys are, you know, automated payments, things like that. we're big, heavy commercial construction, so we're pretty slow moving. The architects, the banks, the lenders, a lot of people are afraid to use the AI. We're getting silly stuff like estimating, is kind of coming into place. Phone calls, inbound, outbound, marketing, right? Increase in marketing leads. I think it's more like right now what I'm seeing is more of like tool use. One thing that a lot of people, majority that I speak to do not realize that, like, when they're using ChatGPT, you got to go into the settings and turn off train the model. So if you don't turn that off, a lot of, all your data is going to the public. So if you have client data that they share with you, they don't want that in the public.
But Jeremy, don't worry. Carly's not talking to AI. She's talking to me.
I know. I could take that a ton of different ways, but yeah. So it really, not to get like dark and dirty about it, but I think one of the things that I feel compelled, I guess, or led to do, because like, dude, I'm a redneck hillbilly from Kentucky and Detroit that's a roofer, and I'm CEO of a AI startup, right? In this conglomerate. And a lot of it came from just believing in myself. Like, I was an overachiever in wrestling. I shouldn't have made it to where I did. But I think you have to set boundaries that can be broken, right? Like things that you don't think can be achieved, and then diligently work at it, right? Like I'm training at what I'm doing with my businesses just like I was when I was competing now. You know what I mean? Like I stopped drinking. I've been sober for, the whole year so far. It's been great. Give me a lot of clarity. Been trying to keep up with you guys. I'm now 2 weeks in on 7 days a week working out, which is really helping, give me clarity. So I just think that it's really important to, train every day, your mind, your body, your soul, if you want to be better. You know what I mean? And like, I just think that like in a business, if you're blessed to have the opportunity, why not make it better for the people around you, the people in it, and that requires constant improvement, every day. You know what I mean? Looking at that mirror and going, did I suck today? You know what I mean? Like how many times?
You also got to think that the market of people going into AI has got to be, it's not small.
It's massive. Our essential target market for within our construction space is around 300,000 is our TAM, right? 300,000 aging out business owners. It's massive, right? Like I don't know how many of them are getting steered the right way versus the wrong way. I think that even the way that we're approaching it is, it's going to change or modify, like, and it already has. Like we, focus on whether a lot of people don't have structured data. What I'm hoping is that we're going to see this resurgence of entrepreneurs coming into the space, using this AI and just really helping. We could, you know what I mean? So.
We've learned a lot today, Dave.
Our goal here on the Boardroom Buzz is to make sure that we try and get, you to share your story, and for our listeners to get a couple nuggets out of our guest's story. You offered lots of nuggets today. So thank you. I really appreciate everything that you're doing. It's very impressive with the amount of balls that you're juggling, how you got this awesome roofing company in New York City, in one of the biggest cities ever. I just learned that there's roofs everywhere in New York City. It's a roof,
yeah,
which is pretty cool. And I'm really excited to see where this AI company is going to go and to learn more about it. So best of luck. I'm really excited to see what's going to happen. And Yep.
You're the man, dude. I can't wait to get me a digital Dave.
When I'm ready, I'm going to get digital twins of the twins.